Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I just got to get my fringe out of my face. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another evening of 1001 Nights, live and online. I am going to leave you with some beautiful music while I very quickly invite two groups on to join us for the reading. Hi, hello, good evening. It's so lovely to have you join. So I'm just going to invite two groups onto the reading, and then we will get going. Okay, so just give me a second here. See if I can do this. No, I have to do this. So I'll be with you in 2 minutes.
قطره قطره عشقش از مژان چکید لرز افتادش به گیسوی بلند زیر لب غمناک خواند ناله زنجیرها بر دست من گفتمش آنگه که از هم بگسلند خنده تلخی به لب آورد و گفت آرزویست دلکش است اما غریب بخت شورم رهبرین امید بست وان طلایی زربه خورشید را صخره‌های ساحل مغرب شکست.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Joanna Godwin-Seidl, and I am your host this evening for the reading of 1001 Nights. I'm just going to turn Camyab down so that I can hear myself speak, just in case you can't. I've got the fire burning tonight. You can't see it unfortunately, but I even put a long skirt on for you all this evening, as we have a very special evening this evening, and we are beginning the 5th book. Now, this is the 5th book of 1001 Nights. So we've already read 4 books. We have 17 books in total to go. That's right, everybody. There are 17 books in 1001 Nights, the Richard Burton translation. So we've got a while to go yet, but now we're hitting book 5. We've read about 1,200 plus pages so far. We've had 5 special readings. We started the special readings in September because we decided we needed to do something wonderful as well. We are also this weekend celebrating 1 year of, hi Monica, 1 year of reading the book. So we started reading the book, and I must get my fringe cut, it's so annoying. We started reading the book in March 2020, on the 20th of March actually. The 20th of March 2020, I read the first epilogue of 1001 Nights. So I might actually even put it up this Saturday just for, we say, naughty language, shits and giggles. I might actually even put that very first reading up. I think I was even wearing this skirt in that reading as well. And so exactly a year ago now, this weekend, we started reading 1001 Nights, and now, a year later, we are on book 5. We just thought that we would start reading and read until the first lockdown was over. And then as we read globally for everybody all over the world, I mean, it's amazing the people we've reached. People from Kenya, South Africa, Denmark, Norway, the United States, Australia. And I have with me actually today a very special something. I just have to show you this glass. I got home yesterday to find the postman standing by my door waiting to give me a box And in the box was a glass which somebody sent me as a special surprise all the way over from Australia. So we reach people in Australia as well, all over the world. It's been a really, really wonderful journey so far. Saman and I are going to do a celebratory anniversary special reading again at the Pali Hansen Kempinski. It won't be until April though, unfortunately, because we have other things that we have to do on weekends until then. And April is actually only just around the corner anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to start reading for you. Again, my name is Joanna Godwin-Seidl. I am a director, actress and producer, and I run this theatre company called Vienna Theatre Project. And Vienna Theatre Project started reading 1001 Nights with Saman Girard last year on the 20th of March 2020 in the very first lockdown to keep people company in the pandemic. And I'm very, very happy and very, very grateful to be able to read for you by my hearth fire in my beautiful skirt with my little sparkly belt this evening. So I hope you enjoy yourselves very, very much. And I will tell you the moment we hit the fifth book, because we're actually finishing the fourth book, and then there's going to be drum roll and we hit the fifth book, but it happens very fast. So bye-bye. And the beautiful music you were listening to was the music of Kanyab Sadiri. Now, when it was the 357th night, Scheherazade said, "It has reached me, O auspicious king," that the young man continued, "In truth, Allah had done away from her this appetite, whereat I marvelled and acquainted her with the case. Thereupon I lived with her, and she took the old woman to be her in the stead of her mother. And," said he who told me the tale, "the old woman and the young man and his wife abode in joy and cheer till there came to them the destroyer of delights and the sunderer of societies. And glory be to the ever-living one who dieth not, and in whose hand is dominion of the world visible and invisible." And another tell the tale of big fanfare, everybody. We're starting a brand new book. So we are now on book 5 with the tale of the Ebony Horse. There was once, in times of yore, and ages long gone before, a great and puissant king of the kings of the Persians, Sabah by name, who was the richest of all the kings in store of wealth and dominion, and surpassed each and every in wit and wisdom. He was generous, open-handed, and beneficent, and he gave to those who sought him, and repelled not those who resorted to him. And he comforted the broken-hearted, and honourably entreated those who fled to him for refuge. Moreover, he loved the poor, and was hospitable to strangers, and did the oppressed justice upon the oppressor. He had 3 daughters, like full moons of shining light, or flower gardens blooming bright, and a son, as he were the moon. And it was his wont to keep 2 festivals in the 12th month, those of the Nowroz, or New Year, and Mirgan, the autumnal equinox, on which occasions he threw open his palaces and gave largesse, and made proclamation of the safety and security, and promoted his chamberlains and viceroys. And the people of his realm came into him, and saluted him, and gave him joy of the holy day, bringing him gifts, and servants, and eunuchs. Now, he loved science and geometry, and one festival day, as he sat on his kingly throne, there came into him 3 wise men, cunning artificers and past masters in all manner of craft and inventions, skilled in making things curious and rare, such as confound the wit, and versed in the knowledge of occult truths, and perfect in mysteries and subtleties. And they were of 3 different tongues and countries. The first, a Hindi or Indian, the second, a Rumi or Greek, and the third, a Farsi or Persian. The Indian came forward and, prostrating himself before the king, wished him joy of the festival and laid before him a present befitting his dignity. This is to say, a man of gold, set with precious gems and jewels of price, and hending in hand a golden trumpet. When Sabur saw this, he asked, "O sage, what is the virtue of this figure?" And the Indian answered, "O my lord, if this figure be set at the gate of thy city, it will be a guardian over it, for if any enemy enter the place, it will blow this clarion against him, and he will be seized with a palsy and drop down dead." Much the king marvelled at this and cried, "By Allah, O sage, and this thy word be true, I will grant thee thy wish and thy desire." Then came forward the Greek, and, prostrating himself before the king, presented him with a basin of silver, in whose midst was a peacock of gold, surrounded by 24 chicks of the same metal. Sabur looked at them, and turning to the Greek, said to him, "O sage, what is the virtue of this peacock?" "O my lord," answered he, "as often as an hour of the day or night passeth, it pecketh one of its young, and crieth out, and flappeth its wings, till the 24 hours are accomplished. And when the month cometh to an end, it will open its mouth, and thou shalt see the crescent therein." And the king said, "And thou speak sooth, I will bring thee to thy wish and thy desire." Then came forward the Persian sage, and, prostrating before the king, presented him with a horse of the blackest ebony wood, inlaid with gold and jewels, and ready harnessed with saddle, bridle, and stirrups, such as befit kings, which, when Sabur saw, he marvelled with exceeding marvel, and was confounded at the beauty of its form and the ingenuity of its fashion. So he asked, "What is the use of this horse of wood, and what is its virtue, and what the secret of its movement?" And the Persian answered, "O my lord, the virtue of this horse is that if one mount him, it will carry him whither he will, and fare with its rider through the air, and cover the space of a year in a single day." The king marvelled and was amazed at these 3 wonders, following thus hard upon one another on the same day, and turning to the sage, said to him, "By Allah, the Omnipotent, and our Lord the Beneficent, who created all creatures and feedeth them with meat and drink, and thy speech be veritable, and the virtue of thy contrivance appear, I will assuredly give thee whatsoever thou lustest for, and will bring thee to thy desire and thy wish." Then he entertained the sages 3 days. that he might make trial of their gifts. After which they brought the figures before him, and each took the creature he had brought and showed him the mystery of its movement. The trumpeter blew the trumpet, the peacock pecked its chicks, and the Persian sage mounted the ebony horse, whereupon it soared with him high in the air and descended again. When King Sabur saw all this, he was amazed and perplexed, and felt like to fly for joy, and said to 3 sages, "Now I am certified of the truth of your words, and it behoveth me to quit of my promise. Ask ye, therefore, what ye will, and I will give you that same." Now, the report of the king's daughters had reached the sages, so they answered, "If the king be content with us, and accept of our gifts, and allow us to prefer a request to him, we crave of him that he give us his 3 daughters in marriage, that we may be his sons-in-laws, for that the stability of kings may not be gainsaid." Quoth the king, "I grant that which you wish and you desire," and bade summon the Kazi forthright, that he might marry each of the sages to one of his daughters. Now, it fortuned that the princesses were behind a curtain looking on, and when they heard this, the youngest considered her husband to be, and behold, he was an old man, 100 years of age, with hair frosted, forehead drooping, eyebrows mangy, ears slitten, beard and mustachio stained and dyed, eyes red and goggle, cheeks bleached and hollow, flabby nose like a brinjal or eggplant, face like a cobbler's apron, teeth overlapping, and lips like camel's kidneys, loose and pendulous. In brief, of a terror, a horror, a monster, for he was the folk of his time, the unsightliest of his age, and the frightfulest. Sundry of his brinders had been knocked out, and his eye teeth were like the tusks of the jinni, whose frighteneth poultry in hen houses. Now, the girl was the fairest and the most graceful of her time, more elegant than the gazelle, however tender, than the gentlest zephyr, blander, and brighter than the moon at her full. For amorous fray right suitable, confounding in graceful sway the waving bower, and outdoing in swimming gait the pacing roe. In fine, she was fairer and sweeter by far than all her sisters. I'm just going to quickly add a stick of wood to that. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. But otherwise, it's going to go out. Thank you very much for the likes. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So where were we? Let me see if I can find my space again. In fine, she was fairer and sweeter by far than all her sisters. So when she saw her suitor, she went to her chamber and strewed dust on her head, and tore her clothes, and fell to buffeting her face, and weeping and wailing. Now the prince, her brother, Kamar al-Akmar, or the moon of moon's height, was then newly returned from a journey, and hearing her weeping and crying, came in to her. For he loved her with fond affection, more than his other sisters, and asked her, "What aileth thee? what hath befallen thee? Tell me, and conceal naught from me. So she smote her breast and answered, O my brother, O my dear one, I have nothing to hide. If the palace be straitened upon thy father, I will go out. And if he be resolved upon a foul thing, I will separate myself from him, though he consent not to make provision for me, and my Lord will provide. Quoth he, Tell me, what meaneth this talk? And what hath straitened thy breast and troubled thy temper? O my brother and my dear one, answered the princess, know that my father has promised me in marriage to a wicked magician who brought him as a gift a horse of black wood, and hath bewitched him with his craft and his egromancy. But as for me, I will none of him, and I would because of him I had never come into this world. Her brother soothed her and solaced her, then fared to his sire and said, What be this wizard to whom thou hast given my youngest sister in marriage? And what is this present which he hath brought thee, that thou hast killed my sister with chagrin? It is not right that this should be. Now, the Persian was standing by when he heard the prince's words. He was mortified and filled with fury. And the king said, O, my son, and thou sawest this horse, thy wit would be confounded, and thou wouldest be amated with amazement. Then he bade the slaves bring the horse before him, and they did so. And when the prince saw it, it pleased him. So, being an accomplished cavalier, he mounted it forthright and struck its sides with the shovel-shaped stirrup irons. But it stirred not. And the king said to the sage, Go show him its movement, that he also may help thee to win thy wish. Now, the Persian bore the prince a grudge, because he willed not he should have his daughter. So he showed him the pin of ascent on the right side of the horse, and saying to him, Trill this, left him. Thereupon the prince trilled the pin, and lo, the horse forthwith soared with him high in ether, as it were a bird, and gave not overflying till it disappeared from the men's espying, whereat the king was troubled and perplexed about his case, and said to the Persian, O sage, look how thou mayest make him descend. But he replied, O my lord, I can do nothing. And thou wilt never see him again till resurrection day. For he, of his ignorance and pride, asked me not of the pin of descent, and I forgot to acquaint him forthwith. Now, when the king heard this, he was enraged with sore rage, and bade Bastinado the sorcerer and clap him in jail, whilst he himself cast the crown from his head and beat his face and smote his breast. Moreover, he shut the doors of his palaces and gave himself up to weeping and keening, he and his wife and daughters and all the folk of the city. And thus their joy was turned to annoy, and their gladness changed into sore affliction and sadness. Thus far concerning them. But as regards the prince, the horse gave not over soaring with him till he drew near the sun. Whereat he gave himself up for lost, and saw death in the skies, and was confounded at his case, repenting him of having mounted the horse, and saying to himself, Verily, this was a device of the sage to destroy me on account of my youngest sister. But there is no majesty, and there is no might save Allah, the glorious, the great. I am lost without recourse. But I wonder, did not he who made the ascent pin also make a descent pin? Now, he was a man of wit and knowledge and intelligence. So he fell to feeling all the parts of the horse, but saw nothing save a screw, like a cock's head, on its right shoulder, and the like on the left. When quoth he to himself, I see no sign save these buttons. Presently he turned the right-hand pin, whereupon the horse flew heavenwards with increased speed. So he left it, and looking at the sinister shoulder, and finding another pin, he wound it up, and immediately the steed's upwards motion slowed and ceased, and it began to descend little by little towards the face of the earth, while the rider became yet more cautious and careful of his life. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Amir. I'm going to take a sip of my water, and then I'm going to carry on reading for you guys one more night. A short one this time. But the fire is indeed burning so beautifully there, and it smells gorgeous. It smells really good. So, let's see. Yes, indeed. All right. Now, when it was the 358th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the prince wound up the sinister screw, the steed's upward motion slowed and ceased, and it began to descend, little by little, towards the earth, whilst the rider became yet more cautious and careful of his life. And when he saw this and knew the uses of the horse, his heart was filled with joy and gladness, and he thanked Almighty Allah for that he had deigned deliver him from destruction. Then he began to turn the horse's head whithersoever he would, making it rise and fall at pleasure, till he had gotten complete mastery over its every movement. He ceased not to descend the whole of that day, for that the steed's ascending flight had borne him afar from the earth. And as he descended, he diverted himself with viewing the various cities and countries over which he passed, and which he knew not, never having seen them in his life. And amongst the rest, he descried a city ordered after the fairest fashion, in the midst of a verdant and riant land, rich in trees and streams, with gazelles pacing daintily over the plains. Whereat he fell a musing, and said to himself, Would I knew the name of yon town, and in what land it is. and he took to circling about it and observing it right and left. By this time, the day began to decline, and the sun drew near to its downing. And he said in his mind, "Verily, I find no goodlier place to night in than this city. So I will lodge here, and early on the morrow I will return to my kith and kin and my kingdom, and tell my father and family what have passed, and acquaint him with what mine eyes have seen." Then he addressed himself to seeking a place wherein he might safely bestow himself and his horse, and where none should descry him. And presently, behold, he espied middle most of the city, a palace rising high in upper air, surrounded by a great wall with lofty crenelles and battlements, guarded by 40 slaves, clad in complete mail and armed with spears and swords and bows and arrows. Quoth he, "This is a goodly place," and turned the descent pin, whereupon the horse sank down with him like a weary bird and alighted gently on the terrace roof of the palace. So the prince dismounted and cried, "Praise be to Allah." And he began to go around about the horse and examine it, saying, "By Allah, he who fashioned thee with these perfections was a cunning craftsman. And if the Almighty extend the term of my life and restore me to my country and my kinsfolk in safety, and reunite me with my father, I will assuredly bestow upon him all manner bounties and benefit him with the utmost beneficence." By this time, night had overtaken him, and he sat on the roof till he was assured that all in the palace slept. And indeed, hunger and thirst were a sore upon him, for that he had not tasted food, nor drink, nor drunk water since he parted from his sire. So he said within himself, "Surely the like of this palace will not lack of victual," and leaving the horse above, went down in search of somewhat to eat. Presently he came to a staircase, and descending it to the bottom, found himself in a court paved with white marble and alabaster, which shone in the light of the moon. He marvelled at the place and the goodliness of its fashion, but sensed no sound of speaker, and saw no living soul, and stood in perplexed surprise, looking right and left, and not knowing whither he should wend. Then said he to himself, "I may not be better than return to where I left my horse and pass the night by it, and as soon as the day shall dawn, I will mount and ride away." And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Let's see if we can liven this back up a little bit, huh, folks? It's rather gone a little bit quiet in there. These two logs will get themselves going. Let's see what's going to happen. So, I have a feeling, very, very bad feeling about what's going to happen next, because I think something's going to happen and he's not going to find his way back up to the horse, is my guess. and maybe he's going to get captured or something, or meet soldiers or a princess or a djinn. I don't know, because I haven't read yet and I haven't found it out. So I will leave that to be found out by the very beautiful Saman tomorrow, who will be with you. Again, on Saturday the 20th, what I will probably do is, just for the fun of it, put up the very first reading, or the very first two readings maybe even, that Saman and I did in March 2020, because remember we started on the 20th of March 2020 and actually back in the day, a much later time, we used to read at 9:45, which is crazy because for some reason when we started we had this idea that parents would be putting their kids to bed and want some time to rest afterwards before we go to sleep, but it would always be we would always be so tired by the time it came to 9:45 ourselves. So excuse me, eventually we moved it forward to the 9 o'clock slot, which we've been doing. Dear friends, as usual, it has been an absolute blessing and a very lovely thing to be able to read for you this evening. I am going to love you and leave you, and I will see you, I think, live next week on Tuesday. As soon as we know when, we are probably not going to know until around the 1st of April when the special reading is going to be. As soon as we do know when that special reading is going to be, we will let you know immediately. We are definitely going to have some beautiful live music by Kamiab Saderi, and hopefully a couple of other little surprises as well, as it will be our 1-year anniversary, and that's what we will be celebrating in our next special reading. In the meantime, if you're looking for something fun to do, I can absolutely recommend that if you go onto www.eventbrite.de, and they are not paying me a cent for this advert, but I will make sure I tell them that I did it for them, on eventbrite.de. That's event, E-V-E-N-T, Bright, B-R-I-T-E, eventbrite.de, and look for Theater Drachengasse, and look for, you can probably just Google the English Lovers. They are an English language improvisation group that live here in Vienna, comprising of Americans, South Africans, Brits, Canadians, Australians, everything from all the many English language speaking countries around the world. They're called the English Lovers. They're an improvisation group, and they are doing an online streaming of their improvisations for the next, I don't know how many weeks. And you can tune in and you can take part actively. So they ask you questions and you do stuff back, and it happens in real time. And then they do little skits and shows. I'm not exactly sure how the makeup is yet because I haven't watched it myself, although I'm definitely intending to. So don't forget that Theater Drachengasse, English Lovers, eventbrite.de. And the Theater Drachengasse do have another show which they're streaming at the moment, but that streaming show is in German, so that might not be so interesting for all of you. Anyway, from me to you, once again, many blessings. Take care of yourselves. Have a beautiful rest of your day or evening. Sweet dreams if you're about to go to bed. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a gorgeous weekend. I hope the weather remains very beautiful for you. Please stay safe. Make sure you look after yourselves wherever you are in the world. From me, it's a very, very good night. And I say bye-bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for listening in. Bye-bye.